This podcast could potentially have adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly the possibility of sexual content. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the Literary Briefs edition. I'm your host, Erica Lance, that just hit my hand on the table, so really sorry if anybody heard that. My co-host today is Daniela Racino, and our amazing guest is Marva Riley. Woo! Woo! Welcome, welcome. Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe, because we know you have your phone in your hand. Let's talk about what we're drinking. I am drinking out of some Drinking with Authors swag. Marva, you'll get some of this for being on the show. But I am drinking kind of an interesting concoction, which is real cranberry juice. So like the really tart cranberry juice, vodka, and I put the cranberry Sprite in it. And it is a little foamy, not gonna lie. You can see it if you're on the YouTube. But it's pretty, it's been interesting. It's doing the trick. Danielle, what are you drinking?
I'm finishing up the last of my chai latte in my Los mug in honor of Carlos's birthday.
He's such a cutie. Los the dragon.
Los the dragon.
Marva, what are you drinking?
I am drinking some hot water with a little bit of lemon juice and some ginger and a little bit of honey.
Oh, you're so much healthier than I am right now.
You have cranberry juice. That counts.
Yeah, it's true. I love lemon, ginger, and honey, though. Those are some of my favorite things in the entire world. Okay, let's talk about some rapid fire questions. So if you are ready, what is your favorite book of all time?
You know, I have to say the Christian Bible. I know it's not one book, it's a collection of books, but I have to say the Christian Bible is my favorite all-time collection of books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about your least favorite? I've never had anybody say that before, but do you read it frequently?
You know, when I was going through a traumatic time in my life, physically and emotionally, I read through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation 4 times.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What about your least favorite book?
I'm not sure I have a least favorite. I think anything to do with numbers, I don't care too much for, but I can't say that I have a least favorite book, or I can't think of one.
Okay. What about what is your preferred reading method? Do you prefer to read it on ebooks, or do you prefer paper books or
Audio?
I probably like all of them, but I think my preference would be paper, because when I read a book, I don't like to read it fast. I like to read it slowly, and I like to underline and highlight and write notes in the margin, etc. So I like to feel the book in my hand for that reason.
That makes sense. You're being an RN, I'm assuming you guys have a lot of continued study, right? Do you guys have a lot of continued study? Yeah. So that has to make, put a different dynamic to reading when you have to do continuous study of something all the time. Do you read a lot of, because your books are in the health realm and mental health realm and stuff, do you read a lot of other books in that realm?
I read books written by Dr. Mark Furman in particular, because he is a powerful plant-based medical doctor advocate. But not only do I read his physical books, but I listen to his lectures and interviews and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, I do.
Very cool. when you were doing research for your book and the diets and stuff, and when you do a lot of research for your recipes? How do you come up with them?
You know, all the recipes in my book are my recipes, because I don't like to cook. I don't like to cook with recipes like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper, 2 tablespoons of whatever. I kind of cook like the way my grandparents and my dad cooks. I'll put a pinch of salt, a dash of pepper, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it always comes out so perfect. So what I did is each day when I would prepare these delicious meals, actually, my husband would say to me, you got to put that in a book. So I would just quickly go on my phone and quickly write the recipe down, whatever I was doing, and it tasted so good. And that's what I have in my book. I didn't do any research or use anybody else's recipes. They are all mine that I did from scratch, and they came out so delicious. I figured other people would enjoy them because they're simple, they're healthy, they're easy, and they're inexpensive. Because people don't want to have to spend a lot of money on special ingredients and spend a lot of time. They don't have a lot of time to spend in the kitchen. So I needed to have simple, healthy, easy, and inexpensive recipes in my book, and they're all mine.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I always look, it's interesting. I find myself now when I look up recipes, I go through the ingredient list and go, is this something that I can actually get? Because I remember buying ingredients where I needed a small measurement, but like, you need a 1/4 cup of this thing that comes only in 16 ounces. And you're like, cool.
Why?
What am I gonna do with the
rest
rest of this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clear distilled plum something, and you're like, what do I do with the rest of this clear distilled plum thing that I have? And so instead of the meal, which could have been amazing, but that meal now costs you $300 because you bought all the specialty ingredients, because I never cooked a meal that was $300. I was overblowing it because that would be nuts, but that is really interesting. Okay. Do you watch television and movies?
No.
I figured, hence the reason I asked that question, because I was going to ask another question, and then I went, it strikes me that is not her thing. So, what about, go ahead, what were you saying?
Erica, I have not watched, okay, let me back up. For the first time in 5 years, I went to the movies. I saw Woman King. And I saw Woman King because I'm on social media, doing what I do. I can't help but seeing all the people raving about Woman King. And my girlfriend said, you've got to see it. Okay. So I went to see Woman King, and my husband wouldn't go. I said, okay, I'm going by myself. So he dropped me off at the movie theater. I went in there, I saw the movie, and he picked me back up, and I enjoyed it. But to watch a movie at home, not really. This Christmas past, I watched Home Alone again, because I had watched it several years ago. But
That's a classic.
That 5 years, and I have not watched any TV. I'm just not into TV.
No, I think that can be good and bad. If it's, sometimes I think we watch way too much TV.
Yes.
But I do understand. So what is the most recent book you read?
Let me see. I did put it here. Maya Angelou's Mom and Me. My daughter got this book for me, and I read it, and I really enjoyed it. I like Maya Angelou's poems, and I really liked this book a lot. So that was the most recent book that I read.
Very cool. What about let's talk about your fans. So fan interaction, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of fan interaction? Well, what have you done in person? Because we all went through this pandemic for years, right? So there was not a lot of in-person events. What kind of in-person events have you done?
I have not done much of any in-person events, except a little bit here and there at the library. I need to get out of pandemic mode and get out there and interact with people a little bit more, especially in my community where I see that there is a big need for what, for my message. And my plan for 2023 is to see if I can collaborate with a physician, at least one physician in my little town. I live in a small city with just about 2,000 people. But,
oh, wow.
Yeah, but I see a lot of sick folks here. And the last time I went for my checkup, my doctor was, had a little bit of discussion with me, and I'd like to collaborate with him and see if I can do maybe some seminars. I know my church asked if I could do a seminar in the spring for them. So I think this year will be my year to get out of pandemic mode and just start interacting and mingling with folks some more. Many of my fans are not in one place. I have folks in Europe and Canada.
More open-minded.
And all over the US and Jamaica and stuff like that. So it's a little difficult to kind of huddle with my fans other than on social media, but I'd like to make some fans of the local people and community, which I plan to do this year.
What about maybe collaborating with a nurse practitioner? Because I would think a nurse practitioner would probably be more open to collaborating with another nurse, because we tend to support more, but a nurse practitioner might be a better way to go, or collaborating on a health and wellness day. I know a lot of hospitals are starting to do that more as the volume comes back down from COVID. Would that be a possibility, or a nursing home, community center, something like that? Yes.
It's interesting that you said that, Daniel, because the physician I referred to is actually a nurse practitioner. He's a nurse practitioner and is very open to that. And I have such high regard for nurse practitioners, because when I was having my cardiac issues, the medical doctor who was my doctor for over 12 years kept telling me that what I was experiencing was in my head, and that I was depressed. That's and it was in my head. And it was a nurse practitioner who said, "You're not going home today. I'm going to hook you up to a 12-lead EKG." And she's the one who saw my heart going like that. And she's the one who said, "You're not going home. I'm going to send you directly to see a cardiologist." So I have a high regard for medical doctors, yes, but I have a very high regard for nurse practitioners. And this person I'm referring to as my doctor is a nurse practitioner that is very, very knowledgeable. In fact, when I went there, he told me, he said, "You're in the top 99, in the top 1% of the healthiest people that I see in my office." I was talking with him because he's a little bit chubby. And when I went back there 3 months after that, he said, "Guess what, Marva? I lost 30 pounds. I embraced the keto diet and I'm exercising, and I've lost 30 pounds in I think 4 months or something like that." So yeah, I believe we can collaborate. And that's one of the things that I intend to discuss with him this year.
That's great.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay. What about, what has it been like to just, when you've got your first fan email or letter or whatever, what was that like for you?
Oh my gosh. It was, every time I get a positive review, it just ramps me up, because as you all, I'm sure know, you will get the positive feedback and you will get the negative feedback. The positive feedback would just get my energy flowing and make me realize that whatever I've written about is relevant, that people appreciate it. Now, what threw me for a loop was when I got my first negative review on Amazon. I got a 3-star, because everybody else was giving me 5 stars, and one person gave me a 3 or 2-star. And it's important to look at those stars and those people who give you a 1 or 2 or 3. Is there validity to what they're saying? You know, and then try to improve on whatever they're saying. Also, when I went on Facebook, there was one person who was a retired English teacher. And she was always, everything I posted on Facebook, she would go through it with fine teeth comb and correct it grammatically, spelling and that kind of thing. And at first it used to annoy me. But then my husband said, it should not annoy you. It's a learning experience. You can learn from everybody. And that's the stance I take now. I appreciate those who give me a 5-star and say, well done, Marva. But those who say you could have done better in this area or in that area, I also take it seriously and try to constantly improve my craft.
Well, I think that is great. I would also take some of that with a grain of salt, because you're going to have critics regardless. It doesn't matter how great you are. I always say, if you want to, pick a fiction book like the one you just read, right, from Maya Angelou, and go on Amazon and just click on the 1-star reviews. They're there because of, popular, but that gives you an idea that not everybody loves every book. That's how it works. Not every person finds every book meaningful. And so you have to remember, we live in a society now where people get to sit behind a computer screen and spout out opinions because you just go, would this person actually come up to me and say this to me? Is it that constructive where they would go, hey, this, and this? Or are they just like, I'm behind a computer screen, I can just bark stuff, It's great. You were an English teacher. Not every English teacher is perfect in English. I would love that to be the case, but that's not. And especially older English teachers who are set in their ways, some of them don't necessarily get it. And does she read what you write or what you talk about? No, then shut up and go bother somebody else, Like,
they're just bored.
Erica, she gave me one of the best reviews on Amazon. One of the best. I mean, I think her review was maybe 2 pages long. It's like Amazon's top review. But for some reason, she was just quite antagonistic on social media. But you're gonna have some of those. And this morning I was listening to a podcaster who has a big following on Instagram, because I learned from those people also. And he was saying he get a lot of hate messages after he does his podcast. So I figure I'm not alone. I just have to grow thick skin and be able to deal with those who give me negative reviews or not so negative, and those that deal with the positive, because that's just the way.
That's just part of the game.
Yes. Oh my God, so part of the game. I always think it's interesting when I talk to authors and they haven't had a 1 or 2-star review. I'm like, it's actually kind of good to have that happen, because then it's done. You can move on with it,
Yep.
Danielle.
I would want to know what your stance is on naturopathy. Do you feel naturopathic doctors are more open in the sense of patient care? Do you think they take more time with their patients? Do you think that they should be regulated in every state? Because I think right now they're only regulated in 14 states. And I know there's talk of allowing them to prescribe antibiotics. What's your stance on that?
I'm a strong advocate for naturopathic medicine, because my experience has been that they look at the human holistically. My experience with medical doctors, for example, and I'm not saying it's every one of them, it's a generalization, is that they tend to treat the symptom. You have hypertension, and I'm going to put you on such and such a pill. Your blood sugar is high on the blood test, and I'm going to put you on such and such a pill. I have never been to a medical doctor, even when I was sick for so many years, and none of them has ever asked me, what is your diet like? What do you eat? Do you exercise? Are you sleeping? How stressed out you are? Never. They would be quick to prescribe a drug. Whereas the naturopathic And that's what I see in my field of practice as a nurse. First of all, the medical doctor oftentimes comes into the hospital room and they don't spend more than a minute with the patients. And the patient is talking to them and they're leaving the room while the patient is talking to them. Now, what I see with naturopathic physician is that they'll pull up a chair. That's my experience. They'll pull up a chair because they want to understand the holistic aspect of your life. Why aren't you sleeping? Is it because maybe you're eating too late, or maybe that wine you're drinking is wiring you as opposed to putting you to sleep? Could it be that you're going through a divorce? Or is it that your children are causing you stress? They look at the big picture and they address the big picture. That's been my experience. Okay. So I am big on naturopathic care because I don't believe that drug is the answer. Because if you're hypertensive and you have diabetes, for example, what's leading to that? Why are you hypertensive? And why is your blood sugar high? You need to get to the source, the reason, address the root cause, as they say in nursing, root cause analysis, address the root cause, and then you eliminate the problem. So in terms of regulation, I think a lot of professions are overly regulated and it ties the hands of a lot of professionals. And a lot of it is money driven.
More insurance driven at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because I know with veterinarians, they, in order to practice holistically or homeopathic, naturopathic, they actually, vets have to go through the full training that they normally would. Then they have to take another couple years in order to treat holistically.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if, I know with naturopathy, it's different.
Mhm.
They complete their college, whatever it is, their bachelor's, and then they can just go to naturopathy school. To whereas it's amazing to me that vets have to go through veterinarian school as they normally would, then go on to naturopathy or holistic training. And we do that for animals, but for humans, we don't do that. It's just, to me, a little mind-boggling that we can take that. And then naturopathy is only allowed in 13 to 14 states where you can call them a doctor or it's regulated.
Okay.
In the rest of the US, they're not, they can practice, but they're not doctors. There's all these little fine lines to get away. And there's only a few naturopathy schools in the US. So I was just wondering for your opinion on that.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion. I think there are too many regulations. I mean, even if we go outside of that field, I know, for example, when I lived in Florida, if you were going to be a barber or even if you braid hair, you had to go to cosmetology school and get a license to practice cosmetology, even if you're not using chemicals on anybody's hair. You're a barber who shaves somebody's hair, or you do braids and you're not using chemical. I come to Georgia and it's not the same. If you're a barber, so long as you're not perming or putting chemicals, you don't need to go to cosmetology school. If you do braids and wigs and weaves and things like that, you don't have to go to cosmetology school. And I also remember years ago, if you were a nurse in Florida, you practiced in Florida and that was it. If you wanted to go to New York, you had to go apply and sit something to get permission or licensure to practice in New York. Now, because there's such a desperate shortage for nurses, they have this compact license where, you're licensed in Florida and you can practice in 12 other states without getting a separate license. So a lot of times these regulations are money because, the more regulation each time you have to pay for these classes and these courses and stuff like that. I'm not sure it's saying folks should not be held accountable, but a lot of times I think it's, perhaps ulterior motive, but only nurse.
I also think, I think it's money motivated, but I will say this. I think it used to be that you had people that would do a trade, and then you had people that would apprentice under the trade, and there were guilds. I'm going back, things. Well, it used to be a barber was a surgeon too. Back in the day, that was a whole thing, right? And now you have people, I can see, like, I agree with you. There's a lot of money motivation, but there are also reactions, I think, to things not being done correctly and not having a way to go, was this done correctly? Did this person learn? And you talk about, certain skill sets. I remember a friend of mine who went to cosmetology school did not learn how to do braids or how to do weaves or how to do wigs or any of the stuff that you see like that. That wasn't what they were taught in this cosmetology school at all. So coming out and trying to learn that, they had to go apprentice with some people that knew how to do that correctly. Because just because you went to cosmetology school also doesn't mean that you're perfect at everything. You have some very good ground rules, but it's kind of like internships and stuff like that. But you also have people that, you don't want necessarily practicing doing something on you without better knowledge on doing it. Like I wouldn't want somebody, like I look at midwives, and midwives tend to train with each other and everything like that. And I think both my kids had midwives. I think they're amazing, right? And should be part of a lot of the birthing processes outside of just the doctors and the nurses, because there's a whole different technique that they have to doing it, slightly more natural. But at the same time, I don't think I'd want somebody who was like, yeah, no, I read a couple books on being and blah, blah, blah.
Yep,
I'd be like,
and I'm ready to go.
yeah, I'm like, you're not touching this. Thanks. So I appreciate you being here. So I definitely think there's a balance, but I think there needs to be more apprenticing, more internshiping, more ways to like actually learn. Because one of the things I always used to say, and wow, this is a fun tangent we're on, but I was an HR professional in my previous life. And one of the things that I found was people would show up with resumes, having gone to 4 years of business college, right? Who did not know how to actually do business. And not because the schools were bad or everything, but it's just academic versus actual, this is how it works, right? So I'd be like, that's cool. I'm very proud of you for going to college, but you need to start here because you don't know how to do this stuff, even though you went to college. So
I ran into that a lot.
Erica,
even as nursing.
It happened exactly the same thing happens in nursing. There are many nurses who graduate from nursing school and never put a urinary catheter in because they never had the opportunity to. And I remember I used to work in an open heart unit someplace, I won't say where, but when they started having the robotic open heart surgery, these surgeons had never, they went to some class. They were open heart surgeons who did open heart surgery the traditional way, but they'd never used robotics, and they had courses, and then they started doing robotic open heart surgery. And I'm telling you, a lot of patients died while they were practicing. And that's everything. They died because from bleeding too much, or infection, or cutting too deep, or whatever the cause was. Many patients died while physicians were practicing robotic open heart surgery. But now, robotic open heart surgery is the way.
It's the standard.
It's a standard. They're not doing open heart surgery the traditional way. I also remember working in a genitourinary unit where they did prostatectomy, removing the prostate traditionally. And when they started using robotics to remove the prostate, a lot of men ended up bleeding a lot, infection, or forever incontinent. So yeah, I understand we want the training and the certification and all of that, but even folks who are trained and certified and stuff like that, initially, when they start practicing, because that's what it is, there's gonna be some mess up until they perfect their craft.
I agree. That's why I said apprenticing
Yes.
and having somebody there, because I've also been in hospitals. Like I've had way too many surgeries, but I've been in hospitals with friends, for instance, where they can't find a vein, and they're like calling
many times.
other nurses, and I'm like, you're a nurse in an ER. Like, have you not apprenticed enough with these kind of situations? And they're calling like
It's not, that's not a skill that's taught. Normally, like LPN, you are not, that's nothing that's taught. That's a separate certification and an IV, an 8-hour IV seminar, and you're given foam, memory foam with a vein drawn on it. And that's how it's taught nowadays.
Not a human. You have
Yeah.
a mannequin. Well, you practice with a mannequin that has veins that are big, and then
If you're lucky.
Exactly, maybe.
If you're lucky.
And
Yep.
then you get into the hospital setting and you have an 80-year-old grandma whose veins are very frail and she's dehydrated. That's a different situation. So
Yeah. That's your next book, The State of Healthcare Nursing, How We're Taught.
yeah.
That's wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Danielle, final question, my friend.
Didn't I just blow us on the whole tangent?
Yeah, you did. So tangent. It's okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. Let me think for a sec. Oh, okay. Here, I've got one. You probably haven't read anything like this in a long time, but as a child, what was your favorite fairy tale?
I grew up in Jamaica.
Mhm.
So there were some Jamaican fairy tales that I'm sure if
Yep.
Okay,
Give it to us.
There was one called Anansi. Okay, and Anansi was a spider. Okay, and Anansi the spider was always getting himself into one trouble or the other. So that was my favorite fairy tale growing up in Jamaica, the Anansi story.
There we go.
Very cool. Okay, Marva, shameless self-promotion time again. How do people find you in your books?
Okay, I've written 3 books. The first one is Eat, Sleep, Meditate, A Nurse's Guide to Health. That was published in 2020. Then I wrote my recipe book called SHEIR. And then I just released my new book, Lose Weight and Keep It Off for Good, Understanding the Weight Loss Game. My books are all available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, and my website, rnmarvariley.com. I actually forgot to say that my books are also available in the state of Georgia public library system, and also in the public library system in Jamaica. And I'm working currently on getting it in the Florida public library system and so on and so forth. So my books are available on Amazon. That's my main distributor, but all those other places. The ebook is $4.99. The paperback is $9.99. And I'm not sure if you asked me how they can contact me. Did you say that, Erica?
I did. How can they contact you?
I am on all major social media platforms. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Facebook health and wellness support group called The Doctor in You. You can send me an invite and we'll accept you. I am on LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. I also have a free monthly health and wellness newsletter that you can sign up for on my website, rnmarvariley.com. I think I've covered it all.
Very cool. Very cool. You have been so fantastic, and I love what you're doing, helping people. That's so amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been Drinking with Authors, the Literary Briefs edition. I have been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host has been the amazing Danielle Orsino. Our guest has been Marva Riley, and we will see. Oh, don't forget to
like and subscribe.
Oh, man. It's on top of it. And we will see you guys next time.